Across the world, people have their housing costs taken away as much as half of their income. Have you ever thought of trying to change that? The good news is there is a way. House hacking is real, and we are here to show you how other people just like you have made it happen. Welcome to the House Hacking Podcast. And here is your host, house hacking expert, Andrew Kerr.
Let me ask you, what would your life look like if you had zero housing costs? Could you finally have some money to travel? Could you pay down all that student debt or credit card debt? Would you finally have money to be able to save for retirement? Well, this podcast is all about introducing you to the biggest life hack ever, house hacking. Each episode of season 1 is going to help you learn about the different styles of house hacking, the different ways to rent your space, and the steps to eliminating your housing costs. Be sure to tune in every week for a new case study as each guest shares the successes and challenges of their house hacking experience. Now here's a little bit of an intro for the case study on this week's episode. After spending a year traveling the world, Amanda and her partner decided to move to Seattle. But when they got there, they realized how expensive housing costs were in the area. She decided to buy a house that had a potential income suite that they could use to help offset the mortgage. In this episode, we hear Amanda go from traveling the world to buying an income-producing home to moving to living on a boat so they could massively crush their debt that they ran up renovating that new income suite, to then traveling across the country for a new job, not being able to find any housing, so they went to living in a camping trailer, and then all the way back to buying another house hack. We're going to hear Amanda explain the ups and downs of her house hacking experience. And let me tell you, this episode is filled with tons of great tips, tricks, and fun takeaways. So with that in mind, let's bring on Amanda. Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited about hearing about your story and your house hacking journey. I mean, how you doing and where are you calling in from?
Yeah, I am doing fantastic. I'm calling in from beautiful Lake Tahoe, California, so no complaints here.
Awesome. So I don't remember it, but I was actually born in California and my parents were big skiers. They have this picture from like the mid 80s of me skiing in Lake Tahoe, but it was actually me skiing between their legs, like holding onto the little pole. So that's my little connection to Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, it's the best place ever. We lived here about 12 years ago for about 7 years and have finally made it back through some interesting decisions. But now we're back in what we think is our dream place.
Awesome. Well, for everyone that's listening, can you give us this sort of high-level overview of the type of house hack that you've done and sort of that experience and time period that you did it in?
Yeah, we started our house hacking journey when we moved to Seattle from Lake Tahoe. So we had taken a year off to travel the world and came back poor. And so lived in a condo and decided we wanted to buy a house, and Seattle's super expensive. So we knew that we needed to find a house hacking solution. Bought a home that had potential, renovated the basement to turn it into an apartment, and then most recently, we've moved to Lake Tahoe and took one of these larger vacation rental style homes and kind of split it into 2 areas and host J1 employees for a portion of this each season, summer or winter. So that's kind of big picture with some sailboats, camping, and other things mixed in between.
Awesome. Well, there's so much there. All right, first question. So tell me about this year that's traveling. And this is really unrelated to the podcast, but me and my wife are huge travel buffs. So you spent a year traveling and you said you came back poor. Was this just sort of a round the world trip or where'd you go?
Yeah, we had been living and working in South Lake Tahoe, and South Lake Tahoe doesn't lend itself to many career roles. So my partner and I had been serving tables, saved up, and decided that we were headed out. So yeah, it took a year, lived in Australia, did a little bit of New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Japan, Central America before coming back and deciding to apply our degrees and put the ski bum life away for a little bit.
Okay, for a little bit. Awesome. And you settled in Seattle. So when you started looking for houses, did you know what house hacking was, or did you know you wanted some sort of income producing property, or like how this whole crazy idea come up?
Well, my grandparents had always owned apartments, and I didn't know we had owned them. I literally thought we were the janitors of them. I was always the oven cleaner, refrigerator cleaner, and I would make $3 an hour. And I was so excited I could go to Jack in the Box. Like that was dreams. And then when I got older, I stumbled upon the Bigger Pockets podcast after Mr. Money Mustache. So it was kind of working this job I hated, living in a condo with my partner, and wondering what in the heck are we doing? So I had some money saved, and we decided together that the only way we could afford a house in Seattle was if we had some way to produce income. And so we were looking for duplexes, but that was just out of our price range. So we knew we needed a unicorn and to make it be willing to make it our own.
Awesome. So were both you and your husband on board, or was it, he had to convince you, or was this your idea and you had to convince him? I mean, I always find that the relationship dynamics are really interesting.
Yeah, so we actually are getting married next year. So he's a saint and tolerates a lot of this. I'm always on to the new idea. Oh, babe, I listened to this thing, or check this out. And he's like, if you send me one more article during my work day, I'm going to put you on mute. So yeah, I was gung ho, and he is the person who's willing to learn everything and get on board and have the grit to see a project through while I'm on to the next thing. So it's kind of the perfect team in that way, that he really holds me accountable once we've come up and both agreed to it to make it come into fruition.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So you had the crazy idea, you pulled him along into it. He was being a super supportive partner, and you're out looking for this unicorn in this high cost of living area of Seattle. How long did you actually have to look for before you found your unicorn of a home?
Yeah, so he called it Groundhog's Day. Every weekend was spent looking at homes. So it took us 10 months and 10 offers. It was a grueling process. And when we found our home, we were literally ready to hang up for about, we knew we had exhausted all of our options and resources, and we weren't willing to compromise and get ourselves in any kind of position that was beyond our budget. And this was already at the max of our budget. So when this house came along, it was one day past the review date. So this is the Seattle timeframe where everything is on the market for about 4 to 5 days, and then they review all of their offers and take the highest and best. So you pre-inspect every home, you do a sewer scope on every home before you even have an offer accepted. That's your buyer responsibility. So every home that you put an offer in costs you, $500 to $1,000 just to compete.
Oh my goodness. And that's before the offer.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. And so did you have to do that whole process 10 different times?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Yeah. So we would joke. I call it The Bachelor, because you go and you fall in love with this amazing home and you just hope it picks you and gives you the final rose, and it never did. Number 10 did.
Number 10 did. Awesome. All right.
Then finally we found love.
Awesome. All right. So what made this house then like the unicorn? Why did it fit? I mean, obviously it took you the 10th one to get it, but why'd you decide to make an offer on this one? Tell me about just like some of the characteristics of the house. Like, why'd you feel like this was going to be good for doing some sort of house hack?
Yeah, this house was very ugly. It was a 1912 home that had had renters in it for the better part of the last 20 years, so no real love to it. Just worn down, drop ceiling with asbestos, and funky layout because it was originally a one-bedroom house that they just kept adding on to. And then as we walked down into the basement was unfinished with 7.5-foot ceilings. And I was like, okay, we're putting in an offer. And everyone's like, did you see the upstairs? So that's what was pivotal for us. And it had an exterior access to the downstairs basement. So in my ignorance, I thought it would be, oh, this is super easy to just build out, just fur out some walls. I've watched HGTV 3 times.
Yeah, HGTV definitely makes it look easy. But so it was really this basement with its own access that sort of sold you on it, as in this could be this income suite for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had other parameters. We wanted to be within a $20 Uber of downtown. And now that I'm a little bit older, I realize how ridiculous that ask was. But I was like, we are still going out. We
Yeah.
still have a good time. And then we wanted to be in a good school district and in the city. We didn't want to have to commute. So that was huge. And so, again, we knew we were looking for a unicorn. It had to have house hacking potential and be in a good area.
Awesome. And do you remember roughly what you bought for the house back in 2016?
Yep. We bought it at $550,000.
And what type of loan did you end up doing for it?
So our mortgage company still doesn't believe us. Well, they do, but I mean, we were the last FHA loan that they had dealt with. Even up until now, they said. So we did a 3.5% down FHA loan.
Awesome. And then
probably and truly weren't qualified to buy a home in Seattle. Like looking back, and I'm sure we'll unpack all the costs, but you're like, what in the hell were we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, $550,000 is definitely a pretty big purchase. I mean, obviously you had to figure out something to be able to have a home in the Seattle market. After the 3.5% down, what did your payment roughly come out to on that house?
About $3,300 a month with PMI.
Okay, and that's so taxes, insurance, payment, the FHA mortgage insurance, and everything.
All of it. Yep.
All right, so I imagine most people that are listening are like $3,300. That's crazy. That's a lot of money, but it's not that crazy when you look at a New York, a Seattle, or a San Francisco. I mean, what were you paying before when you were just renting a place?
So we had a great deal, and that's what was almost prohibitive in us actually being willing to move on and take on a project. We were paying only $1,600, which was very under market. So we were looking at getting like a 2-bedroom or something that had a washer and dryer in the unit, and we'd be paying probably about $2,400 to $2,500.
Okay.
So, but still a huge jump. We lost sleep thinking about if that was a realistic number for us.
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone in that. I mean, most people have that scenario of I'm buying a place and it's going to cost me more than what I'm renting, especially in these high cost of living areas. So, the house was it's the old ugly house. It was originally a 1-bedroom. It expanded on it. It had the basement. So before you did any work on the basement, how many bedrooms and bathrooms was actually in the home?
Yep, it was 2-bed, 1-bath upstairs, 980 square feet.
Wow, $500,000 for essentially 1,000 square feet.
Yes, yeah. I'm from Tucson, Arizona originally, and so Googling that price on Redfin or Zillow of what you could get there is not a good game to play.
Yeah. All right, so you bought this house. You bought it because the basement was there. Did the upstairs really need any work right away, or was your plan to let's get in? We're fine with the upstairs. Let's focus on the downstairs. Like, what was your original strategy once you actually closed on the house?
Yeah, the upstairs needs and still needs a ton of work, but it's livable and it's a good rental unit. So we focused all of our energy and dollars to the downstairs, and that was our sole focus. Not even painting the upstairs, which we finally did. And we're like, why didn't we just paint the yellow kitchen white when we first moved in? But I was just laser focused on getting the basement done.
Well, I think that's a really good point that you mentioned. If you're buying a property, paint makes a huge difference. And it's one of those sort of low cost things that you can do to really sort of dress up a property. So if you're listening and you're getting ready to buy a house and you don't have money to maybe redo a kitchen or redo a bathroom, fresh coat of paint, painting the walls, the ceiling, the trim can really liven up a property. But all right, so you're focusing on the basement. Did you decide to do this on your own, or did you hire out a contractor?
So the great thing about the Seattle high cost of living, expensive contractors, building boom is that you can think you're going to hire a contractor, but no one's going to show up. So we got bids and quotes and just kept running into the same thing. Our materials were a tenth of what the quote would be. And so we kept getting put on lists and pushed back and pushed out. And Matt, my partner, is a saint and really spearheaded this entire project. So we did all of the work ourselves, excluding drywall. We did not hang drywall together.
Okay.
That is a hard no for us.
All right. So let's really dig into this. So, my first question is, you told me the basement has 7.5 foot ceilings. And if you're trying to put in plumbing, that's not a lot of room to build up the floor. So I'm guessing you had to dig down. Is that right?
Yeah, so our date nights consist of Home Depot and renting tools. And so we dug down, we used a concrete walk saw and took out our foundation after 3 YouTube videos and dug down like 4 or 5 feet to put in a sewage ejector and run the sewage ejector into the sewer stack.
Wait.
So
So wait, I just got to stop you right there. Wait. So you guys actually did that work yourselves too?
yeah, and I got to preface this with my partner is a chemist, so he does molecular engineering. So I think he can do anything.
Yeah.
And in my mind, it was just another lab experiment, right? You
Yeah.
just put some tubes together. It is not the case, but I ignorantly thought, of course I can do this. On like, look at this YouTube video and this
Yeah,
YouTube
you're
video.
brilliant. Let's watch YouTube and we got this. And then you actually went and rented the tools from Home Depot. So if anyone's that's listening, Home Depot actually has really cool and heavy duty construction tools that you can rent by the day. And so you went out and actually rented all this equipment that you didn't have.
Correct. And even a step further, Seattle has a really cool program. They have tool libraries. So we were members at about 3 different tool libraries within 10 miles of us. So if one tool library didn't have a tool, we'd go to the next one. And so you pay $40 to $50 for the year, and you can rent or check out all the tools that you may need for a week or 2 weeks. So otherwise, we couldn't afford all of the tools, and there was no way. So that really took away a huge hurdle in order to be able to do some of these projects that had such specialized tools that you needed.
I mean, that's a pretty cool frugal win of like, free tool resources plus renting some at Home Depot. So I definitely give you some credit for that one.
Yeah, it would be interesting because you're like, oh, the oscillating tools checked out for 2 weeks. We'll put that project on hold. But cheap tools fall in some ways when you're like, wait, that tool only cost $100.
Yeah. All right. So here you are. Your date nights are in the basement, getting super dirty, grimy, doing work. I mean, how long did you actually spend renovating the basement, and what were you trying to transform this space into? Was it how many bedrooms, bathroom, full kitchen, kitchenette? Like, just sort of describe what your goal was and how long it took you to get there.
Yeah, we decided to only take on about half of the basement, so make about a 550 square foot, 1 bedroom apartment with a kitchenette, so no stove, just a simple under the counter fridge, sink, bathroom, and bedroom with a nice size master closet. So very simple, but with a little bit of character to make it interesting. So we exposed the beams, left concrete floors, and we really repurposed a ton of materials from the used building supply store. So it has interesting, like a 1920s porcelain sink and marble countertops that we picked up and found along the way.
Oh,
So
very
just a
cool.
really simple city modern or city apartment that had some character.
And was the goal to have it actually be this small studio 1 bedroom style apartment for like a long-term tenant, or was your goal, oh, we can put this on like Airbnb or VRBO?
Yeah, so Airbnb was our initial plan, or we would live in it and rent out the upstairs. So that was the initial thought. And then eventually, if that was to be our forever home, it would serve as a master suite and connect into the upper part of the home.
Okay. So you finished the renovation downstairs. I mean, how'd the dynamic play out in the relationship? I remember when I was building my affordable housing portfolio, I didn't have a ton of money, so I put in a ton of sweat equity and I dragged along my then girlfriend to help me out with stuff. And it didn't always work out too well. She ended up mad at me a lot of the times and frustrating trying to work together to hang cabinets or do tile work and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I ignorantly thought this would be a 3-month project.
All right. Three months was the goal.
Again, I love HGTV, and that only takes 3 months, right? So it ended up taking us about a year and a half, realistically,
Oh, wow.
from start to finish. We finished by June after, so about a year and a half. And it was a ton of work on our relationship. We literally started going to couples therapy, and I love it because it just is to have one person who's science minded and detail orientated and one person who's like, we're going to make it pretty. This is fun. On to the next thing. We really had to establish a good sense of communication and realistic timelines, which I don't have.
I think that's a great tip. The fact that, I mean, especially when you have two people working on it, whether it's a romantic partnership or even a business partnership, you know, each person brings a different skill set together. And then some folks have those big visionary ideas or really drawn to the cosmetic standpoint. And that's what my wife and I, we figured out, you know, I'll make sure the work's done, negotiate with the contractors. I tell her, here's the paint we need. Here's the type of tile, you know, flooring. You go take care of all of that. Or I need shingles for a roof. You go pick out the design. Like, she loves that side of it. And as soon as we figured out that dynamic, we still have the occasional fights about real estate projects, but you know, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think if anyone's getting ready to venture on a house hack, figure out that dynamic of who's good at what, and then that'll help save you a lot of arguments. And clearly you got through it, because there's a wedding next year that you mentioned. So
yeah. Yes, there is. And no, it was now it's been great, because you can walk into a house or a property and be like, oh, you know, the panel needs to be updated, or this isn't to code, or just all of the things that seemed so daunting and overwhelming when we were first looking at a home, we can actually look at and put a number to it instead of just assuming everything is $10,000 or $5,000. So that's been the biggest win in that.
Yeah.
And we learned how to sail in the process.
All right. So you finished renovating this one. Did you still live upstairs, and then you rented the downstairs? You also mentioned a boat came into play at some point. Like, so, you know, you've got this $3,300 a month mortgage payment. You sort of suffered through for the year and a half while you did the work downstairs. Now what's the game plan? How'd you rent it out? Sort of talk us through all of that.
So by the time we had finished, we had maxed out our credit cards, and that was extremely stressful for me. I knew we could pay it off over the long term, but I just lost sleep at night thinking about the interest and every day that went by, how much more it was costing us. Again, I don't think I was the wisest when it came to running all the numbers and understanding what the true cost of something like this would be. So my office I worked at had a slip in front of it that was really inexpensive. And I had this idea that, hey, if we just lived on a sailboat, we could rent out the entire house and pay off all this renovation. So I, in the middle of the day, found a sailboat on Craigslist, and I have zero sailing experience or boat experience. And I decided that I was going to go buy it. And I called Matthew, and he said, "You're okay. Go ahead. You know, if you think it's a good deal."
All right, wait, talk about a keeper. He's just like, you come up with this crazy idea, and he's like, "Okay, babe, go for it."
Honestly, he's insane. I don't know what he's signing up for. But we found this boat. It was $1,900, and I had done some research on fiberglass boats briefly. And I was like, all right, this seems legitimate. And bought this boat, learned how to sail by bringing it home. We motored it through the Juan de Fuca and the Puget Sound and got it in its slip, and it had no water or electricity. And we decided until we paid off all of our credit card debt that we would live on this sailboat that had no water or electricity. We were showering at work gyms and stealing the Wi-Fi from my office and essentially illegally camping on it while we Airbnb'd the upstairs and downstairs.
Talk about a journey.
Yeah. That is not the most glamorous part of our lives. And all of our friends legitimately thought we were insane. We lived in the city. We would still do normal city things and go back to a sailboat at night and light a candle to get ready to go to bed.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, I mean, you bought it for $1,900. So now there's no housing cost per se other than the slip rental, right?
Correct.
Okay. So now how are you renting out your house? Is it Airbnb, long-term tenants? You've got the upstairs, downstairs. Let's talk about that and some of those numbers.
Yeah. So we rented out the upstairs, which is a 2-bed, 1-bath, and the downstairs, which ended up being a 1-bed, 1-bath. And we had a listing for both of those spaces and then a listing for the entire space. So we ended up with the upstairs in the summer high months, we'd see about 4,000 gross in the upstairs and about 2,400 gross in the downstairs.
So it was all Airbnb, VRBO, that sort of thing. No long-term tenants.
Well, we have transitioned to short-term, longer-term tenants now,
Okay.
but yeah, at that time to really get the everything paid off, we were the cleaning people, so we just did whatever it took to get people in there and keep it on Airbnb where we could charge a more premium rate.
Yeah, so basically you were hustling, doing all the work, living on the sailboat. I mean, during the peak months, it looks like you're bringing in $6,400 a month, and here you are, having your mortgage costs all in at 3,300. So, you're making like $3,000 a month. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. I was very fortunate that those numbers actually did work out
Yeah.
as I had forecasted them. So we were really happy to have all of that weight and debt off of our shoulders and be able to pay that off by. We moved onto the boat in June and we had paid everything off by October.
Oh, wow. So, like you really tackled all that debt in the credit card bills you ran up paying for the expenses to renovate the place.
Yep, we did.
That's awesome. So before you decided on Airbnb, I mean, how'd you figure out what to actually rent the units for? I mean, how'd you decide on what a nightly rent is and how to price it and figure out that side of things?
Yeah, just looking at all of the other rentals in our neighborhood and they're trying to guess what their occupancy rates were. There's a website called AirDNA.
Oh, yeah.
It's a paid tool, but they have some transparency into some of their data. So looking at that, looking at other rentals in the area, and honestly, I think a huge leg up is if you decorate it, take the time to give it character and an aesthetic and not make it look like it just came from IKEA. So many people want that Instagram worthy accommodation, and I hate to say that and admit it, but I really think that's what set our units apart. So I really took the time to make sure it was furnished. I had the extra toiletries and amenities, and we had a very beautiful backyard and a really walkable neighborhood. So those things have really helped set us apart. But yeah, just looking at the other rentals in the neighborhood, and we started low to get all of those reviews, so we could get
Yeah.
5-star reviews. But then it got to a point that you don't want somebody to price it so low that somebody is going to not care for your home in the way you would. So we were happy to not get those bookings if the competition was below us.
Awesome. So yeah, for anyone that's listening, I'll put AirDNA in the show notes. I've actually used it for the guest house that we rent out here in New Orleans that we have. It's an awesome resource when you're trying to figure out that initial pricing. And we did the same strategy as you. We used AirDNA that said, here's what you should market it at. We did a little bit lower to get started and get the first couple reviews. And then we moved it up to that. And then we actually went a little bit higher than what it suggested just because we wanted to attract a little higher end of a clientele. So awesome stuff. So how long did you actually end up living in the boat?
June till October. Yeah. It gets cold and rainy in Seattle.
Okay. So you only lived there for, 4 months, 5 months or so?
Yep. Only, but let me caveat that this boat was only 27 feet long. So
long several months.
Yeah, and Matthew's a little over 6'1", so he was always crouched every day. Yeah, so not a crazy amount of time, but long enough to really challenge our relationship and ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So did you end up selling the boat? You still have the boat? I mean,
we actually just sold the boat. So I, following that, took a position that brought me back to Lake Tahoe. So we knew we were going to transition back to Lake Tahoe. It's always been our dream to figure out how to make it work here. And an opportunity kind of fell into our laps. So we decided, okay, I'll go. And I moved here in April. And Matthew is still in Seattle, living in the basement of our Seattle house. And we just sold the boat for $2,500.
Oh, so you actually made some money on the boat.
Yes,
awesome.
There's silver lining. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So he's living in the downstairs. Are you still running the upstairs Airbnb, or you mentioned you transitioned to shorter, longer term tenants?
Yeah. So Seattle has, has the number one trauma one or some sort of trauma center in the region for hospitals. So that brings a lot of travel nurses to the area. So we rent the upstairs now to travel nurses because we leave it completely furnished.
Awesome. And Are you making as much as you were with Airbnb, or is it a little bit less? I mean, talk to
It's
me about that.
it's definitely less, but there's no turnover. You don't have the same kind of wear and tear or the
Yeah.
responsibility for check-ins or those types of things, or not having to communicate with the guest all of the time because we were doing all of that end to end
Yep.
has been helpful knowing that we're moving away. So we're hopeful to keep that model in both the upstairs and downstairs. Typically, travel nurses prefer to live near other travel nurses, so they have that community. So that's our goal, is to have both travel nurses in the up and downstairs.
And is the Seattle house right now, is it sort of cost neutral, or is it costing you a little bit of money with Matthew living in the downstairs, or are you actually making a little bit of money over your mortgage cost?
So our upstairs travel nurses pay about $2,700 a month, inclusive of all utilities. So we're not making any money. And when we have a downstairs tenant, I think we'll be about neutral because we do include all of the utilities just to keep it simple. So we hope to continue that model, and just as long as it pays for ourselves, that itself, that's a win for us.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, though, with Matthew still living in a high cost of living place like Seattle, and for only $700 a month in a place that was just renovated, decorated really nice. I mean, that's phenomenal. So yeah, that right
Yeah,
there, I
it's
count that as a
really
win.
cute. He has the dream little bachelor pad, in my opinion. I mean, he worked his buns off for it, but yeah, it's been really nice and it has allowed us to, take this next crazy journey.
All right, so he's wrapping up in Seattle. You moved ahead to Lake Tahoe, and you alluded to doing some sort of house hacking experience there. So did you immediately buy a place in Seattle or in Lake Tahoe, or did you know you wanted to buy a place, or like how'd you sort of stumble into this whole thing?
Well, so I decided to take this role in Lake Tahoe, which again is a dream location. And housing is really tough for long term tenants. Affordable housing is tough. Most of the units up here are geared towards vacation rental homes or second homeowners. So they're really large and they're not really in line with the median income of the local market here. So knowing that, I actually wasn't able to get a rental here. And my friend had a here we go. My friend had a camper trailer that I stayed in for a couple of months until we found our house in Lake Tahoe. So we have a dog, and that really took us out of the running for all rentals. Even with great credit, great income, I could not lock down housing that was under $2,000 a month for myself.
Oh man, yeah.
So yeah, I was actually really taken aback that it was so expensive. I had thought that by the time I had gotten here, that couldn't be true, and that was the truth. So we were looking for a house. We didn't want to do as big of a fixer upper. And on one of his visits here, we found a dump in a great area that was walkable to Lake Tahoe. And he came up with a layout for it and decided we're buying another fixer upper. So
I like how you said we're not going to buy a place that's so much work, and then we found a dump and wanted to buy it.
yep. Here garages are gold. So it had a 2-car garage, walkable to the lake on a flat road, which is a big deal when it gets icy and snowy. So we thought about it for a month before we even offered on it. It's been on the market for 200 days, a completely different scenario than our last. And we offered about 100 grand under their asking price.
But you ended up getting it.
We ended up getting it. So we went back and forth, and it was nice because we had a walk away number because we didn't like it.
Yeah, yeah.
We liked it. It made sense. It had good bones, but we knew the work it would take. So it was a lot easier to kind of keep it at an arm's length and say, if it works out, it works out, and not get that emotional attachment that you get after looking for 10 months and feeling like we have to get something now.
I think that's a really good feeling to go, though. I mean, once you realize like that first time you buy a house, it's so easy to get emotionally attached. And then you're sort of like, well, hey, I've been through this before. Like, you want it? Here's my number. I'm not going above it, and I'll walk away if I want to walk away. It's a strong position to be in when you're
Yeah.
negotiating for a property.
Yeah. And it was a first for us. And it was still, that lump in your throat that, okay, we're going to take on another mortgage on top of another mortgage. And I still, have issues with that, even though we've done the amount we should save in a piggy bank in case for emergency funds. It still just feels like at any moment, you're overextended, or what if somebody got hurt, or those kinds of concerns that the more homework I do, I think everybody has those. It's okay as long as you've done your diligence to save and work out the numbers, unlike the first time.
Absolutely. I think everyone, like you mentioned, has that fear, that little sort of voice in the back of their head of like, what if, and you just do your due diligence, you run your numbers right, you double check them, and then you push through. All right. So you found the dump. How much did you end up buying it for, and what type of mortgage did you use? Because you had the FHA on the other property, so you couldn't use an FHA again on this one, right?
Correct. This property ended up, so it was listed at $599. We offered $505 and landed at $531. So another huge mortgage. It's about 2,100 square feet, 3-bedroom, 3-bath. And it's a really funky layout. So there's an entire not really a basement, but the garage has a living room area and walkout slider. And then the upstairs is 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and a lofted space. So we bought this house. We put 5% down using a HELOC from our last house, which we wish we could have saved up more, but given what we know we're about to do with Matthew transitioning out of work, we needed to lock in a mortgage while we both had the incomes to support 2 mortgages.
Yep.
We didn't want to use up all of our cash reserves, knowing that we were going to do a lot of work on this property. So our long-term plan is that we do the work and refinance, and we have a few other exit strategies should that not play out.
And then what's your mortgage running right now on this property in Lake Tahoe?
$3,700 a month. Ooh. California taxes. Man. And what's interesting about up here is homeowners insurance. Unfortunately, with all of the fires, getting coverage is a very difficult task. So the second that you enter escrow, you need to find somebody who's going to insure your property. And there's only about 2 insurers up here currently. So it's really difficult to find an insurer. And that was a huge hurdle I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah.
That kind of took us by surprise.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So this is a pretty hefty mortgage payment. Obviously you've got good credit, you make good income, you can qualify for it, but even being able to qualify it for, that can be a little bit scary. So, did you want to do work right away, or, you alluded to the J1 visa workers coming in, like, let's just dig into that. Like what was your plan?
Yeah.
And why'd you say like $3,700 a month mortgage is scary, but like, we've got this covered. We know how to hack the place.
Yeah. So we were in Lake Tahoe. Finding employees is a difficult task. We have so many large resorts, hotels, restaurants, and we swell up to doing about, I would say in 12 weeks, most of the businesses up here do about 80% of their revenue.
Oh, wow.
Outside of the ski resorts. So that is a huge amount of business and volume that happens in the community up here. And we don't have the workforce to accommodate that. So they bring in J1 visas from Eastern European countries, Romania, Lithuania. So a lot of them cannot find housing. And since I work in the hospitality industry, as we were deciding on this house, one of the managers brought it up in a meeting that, hey, we have 10 employees that can't find housing. Does anyone know? Reach out to people. And curiosity kicks in. I'm like, oh, what do they pay? Oh, on average between $400 to $500 a person. And I was like, oh, what?
Light bulb just went off. You're like, ding, ding,
yeah.
Ding, ding.
And, we were still in negotiations for this house. And I was like, okay, that makes things like, that takes all of the stress off of my shoulders. So
yeah.
Here we go. Like, let's do this. So once we had gotten past our contingency removal and it was clear that we were going to move forward, I reached out to a group of J1 visa workers who needed housing, explained the situation that, hey, buying this house, here's kind of the look and feel, would 10 people want to share a 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Because that's not a realistic roommate count for me, but they were just happy to have housing. So we were supposed to close on June 4th. We closed on June 12th. They arrived June 10th. So I had to put them up in hotels for a couple of days. Immediately got the keys, boarded up the stairs to the lower basement-ish level. And that's where I lived with the 1 bathroom. And so moved in 3 sets of bunk beds and a few queen beds, and got some couches, and they lived here for the last 3 months.
Oh, wow. So you had the 10 folks and they're all, what'd they end up paying? 400 or 500 a month or so?
They paid $450 a person, inclusive of all utilities.
So you're bringing in $4,500 a month, and here you are with your mortgage at $3,700.
Living with 10 Romanians who are between 21 and 23.
Definitely a fun experience. I can only imagine like sharing the wall with a bunch of young guys.
Yeah, it was an interesting summer, but at the end of the day, it was, the bigger picture was we wanted to live in Tahoe, and that took away a lot of the hurdles and made it so we could get into this home and still have our nest egg and not overextend ourselves.
Yeah, so you're essentially breaking even, pocketing a little bit of money here, and now the winter season is coming up. Are you going to do something again? I mean, I imagine more folks are coming into work for the ski season. I mean, what's your plan sort of going forward?
Yeah, so the lower level's about 750 square feet with a bathroom and walkout area, washer, dryer. So I've since moved into the lap of luxury and moved upstairs, and we will have 4 South Americans share the downstairs for the winter. So there's an employee housing program up here because, again, finding housing is really, really, really tough. So with sharing everything that the space was, and know that it is not luxury by any means, but they're excited to have housing and have the opportunity to come to the US and work for, I think it's a 90-day period, and get to explore all of our winter. So it's kind of an exchange.
Awesome. And so then the 4 folks that will be living in the basement rental unit, what are you expecting to get for rent from the 4 of them?
They're going to pay $400 a person, including their utilities.
Okay, awesome. So you're bringing in $1,600. So now you're upstairs, lap of luxury, and it's only costing you $2,000 a month to be in another high cost of living area. So I mean, you almost cut your housing costs in half by renting out that downstairs space.
Yeah, and we could do more, but we are going to start renovations in January, and we're knocking out all of the kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom to change the layout in this property. So we knew that we were taking more of a hit on the house hacking income in order to start our renovation process.
And what are your future plans then for the property for renovating it? Are you going to gear it towards the sort of seasonal workers or a vacation home, or you sort of going to keep the layout roughly the same?
So we're changing the layout a little bit, but our goal is to and even in our Seattle property, we did this where you could combine the spaces. So we had a fake library looking bookcase in the Seattle house, and behind the shelves were double doors to the other side of the basement, but they were completely locked and dead bolted on both sides. And with this property, with the stairs going down, we want to have a door that could be closed off and look like a bookcase type thing, or have it open and it could be one large vacation rental, or depending on how good our work is, maybe we'll sell it. We have 3 different ideas coming out of this property because it's just such a different market.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really smart. The fact that you're saying like it could be, you're basically creating multiple exit strategies and multiple uses for the property, which to me, that gives you a lot of security for what you want to do with the property in the future. So I think that's brilliant. The fact that you're saying, let's divide it, but make it so it can actually be used as a single shared space.
Right. That's the goal. So we're hoping we'll keep a kitchenette downstairs, keep a kitchen up here. Again, I see myself us moving downstairs so we can rent or Airbnb the upstairs in those choice seasons. We've even talked about, maybe we get a camper van now and we leave on holiday weekends and rent out our house, because Tahoe has that kind of draw from neighboring communities. So we have a few different plans, none yet. And Matthew will be moving down in the next month. So I'm trying to give him a chance to catch his breath and actually decide what he wants to do before I've planned it all out.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, God, I mean, this just blows me away, the different experiences that you had, from high cost of living area to living on a boat to camper van, camper trailer, to now another high cost of living area. And I mean, long-term tenants, traveling nurses, Airbnb, J1 visa workers. I mean, so if you're sort of thinking back through this house hacking period, I mean, what do you feel like your biggest success was or like a major win?
Being flexible. I honestly, again, we live a very normal lifestyle outside of our housing. And for me now, it's completely normal. And so many of our other friends who've been curious, who've now gone into duplexes or other type of interesting properties or renting out spaces. But I think not feeling like entitled that we deserve all of this space or we deserve to have this or that has been, I don't want to say our success because we're still in it and who knows if it's all these wins, but being different has definitely afforded us different opportunities and not feeling like we deserve to have a washer and dryer at every space or a dishwasher, like those simple amenities that so many people are like, I can't live without that, you know. Well, we've lived without them in most of the places we've lived, and
Yeah.
it's allowed us these other opportunities. So just staying flexible and not feeling entitled to 2000s
Yeah.
modern day.
Yeah. Do you think the year you spent traveling actually helped get you ready for this experience?
I mean, I think so, because when you're in a hostel or, you know, you've been on an overnight bus or some of those things, you're like, a bed? Wow, hot water, treat yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think some of that does help. And, you know, coming out of living in South Lake Tahoe originally, when you have a gazillion roommates because all you guys want to do is ski, you're kind of used to that lifestyle. So our lifestyle inflation has never crept. It's all just gone into homes or projects. Or for me and Matthew, traveling. Like if we're not spending money on a renovation project, we want to go somewhere. So that's been a huge goal for us.
Yeah, and that's the thing I love about house hacking. Like, if you just reduce this biggest expense that most people have, it lets you do so many different things. Whether that's if you want to save, save. If you want to pay down debt, pay down debt. If travel's your passion, then take that savings to help travel. So, yeah, that's really awesome. I mean, again, thinking back through this whole experience, what do you feel like your biggest challenge was, or if you could actually go back and change something or do something differently, what might that be?
The biggest challenge has been for me to have realistic timelines.
Yeah.
That's been huge. And not pushing my partner so far. I mean, he is at a biotech startup where he works 8 to 8. So coming home and every day and every weekend we'd be in the basement. That wasn't realistic. We didn't come up for air. And so much of our challenges were the fact that I had unrealistic timelines and we weren't enjoying ourselves during the process. So with this property, he's actually going to quit his job and take on the remodel. And we have it broken down into phases this time.
Oh, yeah.
So he's going to quit his job and take on this will be his job for the next 3 to 6 months, also while skiing in the mornings and kind of finding that balance again.
Yeah, spend time on the relationship, actually have fun, and get the renovation done. So I know you just said 3 to 6 months, and you mentioned one of your faults was being too optimistic. Is it actually going to be 3 months, or is it going to be closer to 6 months?
It'll probably be closer to 9 months, let's be honest. But I feel like there's that part of me that feels like if I just give in to the 9 months now, then it's going to creep to 12 months. So if I say 3 to 6 months, maybe 9 months is realistic.
Okay, I like that attitude. 3 to 6 months, and if you go over to 9, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously you're right in the middle of a new house hack, but I mean, have you thought about, would you actually do another house hack again if you were ever to leave, the Lake Tahoe area?
I love house hacks. I think they are such a great vehicle to make other things come into fruition. I mean, investing in real estate is not the same as it was for my grandparents when he put $18,000 down for 8 duplexes. I still just, that baffles me. So this is one of those ways, and especially with different FHA programs or I think FHA allows you to buy 4 properties for your first multifamily. There's just so many other tools available if you're willing to fix a leaky faucet, paint a few walls. So I would love to buy a traditional multifamily for our next property, but I don't know. This market is so interesting. It already makes me nervous that we bought in at the time that we did. But I know with house hacking, it kind of doesn't matter
Yeah.
because we can just take on more roommates and figure it out.
Yeah, in the short term, if the market does pull back and the value drops, you're going to be fine because you figured out how to generate income with your housing.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope to keep on doing it until we get to 10. But I know that in our future, we plan on having kids and a family. So I'm eager to hear from your other interviewees how they balance that out and tackle it. Because for me, I would love to keep going, but I can only imagine with kids how you up the ante a little bit and have to be a little bit more realistic with timing and
Yeah.
projects. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on and sort of sharing your experience. But before we let you go, we like to ask all of our guests a set of final 6 questions.
The famous 6.
Are you ready for the first one?
hit me.
Awesome. What is your favorite personal finance blog, book, or podcast that you've read or listened to recently?
I'm addicted to Mr. Money Mustache.
Awesome. I think so many folks, especially in that sort of early personal finance era, found Mr. Money Mustache. He was one of my original favorites that I listened to as well. All right. Number 2, what's your favorite real estate related blog, book, or podcast?
I love Bigger Pockets. Every time I'm chipping tile or a home project, I just stream it the entire time and think about how much money I'm saving. It's like having my own little cheerleader in my ears while you're grouting or tiling.
Awesome. Awesome. I like pairing those together with while you're actually doing the real estate work, you're listening to a real estate podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. And number 3, what's been your favorite travel destination you've been to so far?
Oh, I'm going to say Ethiopia.
Ooh, that's not the usual one. What made you like Ethiopia so much?
I had the opportunity to go. We were with a company I worked with building a women's health hospital, and quickly the women there don't have modern amenities, but they're such more community and they raise all their own food. And, you originally go thinking, oh, we're going to help them. And you leave like, wait, they have it figured out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Awesome. All right. Number 4, what is next on your travel vacation list?
well, we've decided to get married and we were going to do a backyard wedding and we vetoed that plan and are going to get married in a villa in France.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Simple. Yeah. So just show up with a dress and a suit and have a nice catered meal and call it.
All right. So was that your idea or was it his idea to go off to
That
another
was his
country?
idea. I wanted to have a simple backyard wedding in our new beautiful Lake Tahoe location. You can walk from the beach. And that added up quickly. So we are frugal as can be. And with all of our points and all of that, we're like, wait a second, we can get a villa for how much and invite 30 of our closest friends and family and just make it a little beautiful, intimate experience. So he decided that once we have to grade our backyard. And so we were watching YouTube grading videos and he's like, so how's that villa looking?
Awesome. I love the fact that this one was his idea, whereas all the house hack stuff was like, oh, we're going to buy a boat and they live in it. We're going to do this house hack. Cool. And then what's number 5 is what's your biggest bucket list item that you haven't accomplished yet?
Becoming financially independent.
Very cool. I think that's a big one for a lot of folks. Have you started to play with any of the online calculators yet and see sort of how far away you are from it?
Yes and no. So I have a trouble figuring out realistically what our net worth is with the property and all the different things. And I keep feeling like we get to a place and then use our cash for the next home. So I'm trying not to focus on that because after our long marathon, it feels like we just want to make sure we're also having fun. And that's kind of why we came back to Tahoe and getting outside while we can. And that's the goal now, because otherwise I become obsessive about that number and how we can reach it and what we're going to do and whose shoes we're going to sell to make it happen.
I like that approach though. It's a goal. We want to work towards it, but let's not go overboard and focus on it and still enjoy life. And if it takes a year or two longer than it would, no big deal because we're going to enjoy it as we go along.
Yep. Yeah. I think we keep seeing mini vacations or periods where we just pick up and leave for a year as the more realistic path.
Awesome. And then number 6, what is your favorite life hack?
Ooh, Favorite life hack is probably not picking the destination, but picking the cheapest flight. So I think Kayak Explorer, if you go on and just plug in a few of your airports you're willing to leave from and see where you can go for how much, I think has taken us to some of the coolest destinations. Everywhere is amazing. And as long as you don't have it in mind where you want to go or what time you want to go, there's so many cool places to go pretty inexpensively.
Yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned that, because I do that. And then my wife and I will also look at the Google flight search where you can just be like, Europe, October through November. And it'll say like, going here is $5,000, but going here is $1,000, so you get to play and pick with it. And yeah, we get to explore a lot that way as well. So yeah.
That's honestly how we picked the villa in France, because you're like, wait, flights out of SFO are $400 round trip right now. Great. That's where we're going.
Done. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show, being so open and sort of sharing your house hacking experience with you and your partner, Matthew. I love it. I had so many cool notes, so many questions that you answered for us. I loved how you just sort of hustled and said, like, we're going to live on a boat so we can pay down the credit card debt we ran up to fix up the place. And, even as you get a little later in life, it's like, well, I can't figure out housing in Lake Tahoe, so I'm going to go live in a camper trailer while I figure it out. You're sort of basically nonstop, persistent, and hustling, and didn't seem to take no for an answer and just said, hey, we're going to make it work. It was awesome. Thank you again for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been great. And I'm sure Matthew deserves a gold medal.
I definitely think he deserves a gold medal.
Absolutely. Well, it's cool that you're sharing this with everyone else, because it's not as crazy as people think once you just dive in.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for listening to the House Hacking Podcast. For more up-to-date information on house hacking, to access links and resources mentioned in today's show, and connect with a guest and host, head over to www.fibrei.com. That's www.fibrei.com, where your house hacking journey begins.